Did you know it's now cheaper to rent a home than it is to buy a home in all 50 of the top metros nationwide? Which really kind of begs the question, why should I even consider buying a house? Shouldn't I just rent? I mean, it seems like the popular thing, and it kind of seems that we're becoming a renter nation. Isn't that the right thing to do? In today's video, we're gonna talk about buying versus renting and the actual solution that nobody's talking about. So check this graph out. Starting in the year 2000, it graphs the price of real estate compared to rents. And one of the things that you're gonna see is that the rents consistently just continue to rise. Even when real estate prices are climbing really high, leading up to 2008, rents just kept very stable. And then of course, the market crashed and fell below that rent line. When you see the price of real estate, buying real estate fall below that rent line, it basically means it's a lot cheaper to basically buy a cheap house than it would be to actually pay rent, which means during those periods of time, you actually have a really high cash flow. But look what eventually happens. Real estate massively surpasses that rent line all over again, just like the pattern of 2004, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And as a result, we stand in this really unprecedented time frame where we have the price of real estate so high, but guess what? Rents have not caught up. And as a result, there's a lot of people saying, why would I buy? Why would I feed into these high interest rates? Why would I buy such an expensive home that has gone so much in value when right now I can just rent for a lot cheaper? Kind of does beg the argument, why not just rent? So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna talk about the pros of renting, and then we're gonna talk about the pros of buying, and then really figure out, wait a second, what should people be doing right now? And there's a lot of benefits of why people rent. Number one is flexibility. Renting can offer more flexibility than owning a home. There's lower costs up front, right? Like if I buy a home, they sometimes call it a freaking money pit because it's like, oh no, something broke, I gotta pay for it. But if I don't own the home and I'm just renting it, then I can go to the landlord and say, you pay for it. And there's fewer maintenance responsibilities. You know, if something breaks on the property, the landlord's responsible for fixing it. And it does create financial predictability, right? Renters can budget more effectively with fixed rental payments instead of unexpected maintenance costs. Or, man, I have home ownership and I'm excited to build a carport, or I wanna like build an extra room on it, or I wanna paint it. All of that stuff costs a lot of money that renters just don't have to deal with. But there are definitely some major disadvantages to renting a home instead of buying a home. For example, there's a lack of equity, as in you're not building up equity. Like when you pay your rent to the landlord, they're going to pay the mortgage if they have one, and a portion of that is going to go to actually reduce the principal so that someday the house gets paid off. And guess who's paying off the house? You are. The renter is doing that. You also have rising rents. Like that graph showed with the housing markets unpredictably, renters may face annual increases in rental payments affecting affordability. Rent can increase over time depending on the term of the lease, but if you own a home, you can actually lock in a payment and it doesn't keep going up. You also have super limited control over the property. For example, you may need to get permission to paint a wall or make some other change, and the landlord might just say, no. Now let's compare that to buying real estate, which right now feels like the really expensive option. So let's take a look at the advantages. Investing and building equity is one of the first major advantages. Like when you buy a house, over time it's gonna get paid off, but over time that house also goes up in value. Like right now we're missing 7.2 million single family homes, and it's gonna take us a decade to catch up on that. Well, during the next decade, every time rates go down, we're gonna see a buying frenzy occur, and that's gonna drive the price of real estate north. You also have greater privacy control. Buying a house lets you have total control over your home. And as a homeowner, you have the freedom to modify your property however it suits your taste. You also have stability. Owning a home provides stability since you're not subject to rent increases or eviction by a landlord. And finally, you have huge tax benefits, right? Like homeowners are eligible for tax deductions on mortgage interest and property taxes, as well as several other tax benefits. But there's also big disadvantages to buying a property. For example, you have huge upfront costs. Buying a home requires a significant initial investment, including a down payment, closing costs, moving expenses, and then on top of that, any upgrades that you want to do to the property. When you buy a property, you have additional costs like property taxes, insurance. Then you have the maintenance and the repair costs. You're basically responsible for everything that happens in that home. And every time you don't fix something up, you're basically delaying the inevitable, and you could literally be building up like thousands or tens of thousands of dollars of repairs that you're eventually going to have to do down the road. Owning a home also gives you a massive loss in flexibility. Like if you own a home, it's more difficult to relocate due to a job change, or maybe your family has different needs, or there's other reasons. And then technically there is this risk of depreciation. Everyone's always talking about appreciation and the price of real estate going up, but every 10 or 15 or 20 years when we do experience a correction, you can actually see a drop in the value of your home. Here's the problem that we're facing in our country right now. Nearly 40% of all US renters, they actually don't believe that they'll actually ever get a home. That's up from 27% last year per Redfin. So what if I told you that the best option between buying and renting was actually neither? What if there was a way of owning real estate without the headache of owning real estate, but also take advantage of the consistent increase in rent? If you want the best of both worlds, it's to become a real estate investor. It's actually where you buy real estate, but then you don't have to do any of the management of it. For example, in the link below, you can actually learn about partnering with me, where you might have money sitting in a 401k or an IRA or equity in your own personal home. And what you do is you put that cash up, we buy a home together, but then I step in and I do all of the management of the property, which means I find the tenants, I lease it out, and basically my job is to make as much money on the property as possible so that we can then split those profits. And you might be wondering, okay, Kris, well, how lucrative is that potentially? Well, put it to you this way. It makes 27 times more money over 20 years than a 401k. You might be wondering, well, how is that even possible? Well, there's a reason why 90% of millionaires got rich in the game of real estate. It's the game I've been playing for the last $2 billion worth of real estate. So if you have been watching this video wondering, okay, Kris, should I rent or should I buy? Personally, I actually do think that you should buy so that you can get all of the advantages of appreciation and the benefits of real estate in the years to come. But beyond that, I actually think that you should own far more homes, and you can do that by partnering with me, or you could technically buy real estate on your own. But if you want the headache-free path of doing that, and you want to just see how much more money you can make by owning real estate than doing a 401k or an IRA, click the link below and learn about partnering with me, and let me show you what that looks like. Well, that kind of begs the question. If I am gonna buy real estate, should I buy something new or should I buy something used? Like, is there a difference between the two of them? Because I've kind of heard that new real estate is a lot more expensive than old real estate. I don't really know if that's true. I got you. Click right here, watch this video. Let me help you understand the difference between building or just buying.